Welcome CSC235 class or CSC103 class. You'll both be working on the same exercise, and if you had a previous class where you did rock, paper, scissors, this will be a little different. So this is the 2018 version, spring 2018, so it'll be a little different if you did it in the fall. And it's a good exercise no matter what class you're in because it involves a lot of JavaScript, a lot of different processes will be involved in here. A lot of HTML, there's some CSS, there's JavaScript, there's all kinds of good stuff in here. There's arrays, there's if-else statements, all kinds of good stuff. So we're going to work on this, and this is the sample that you're going to work towards, and it looks very simple, just a couple lines of HTML code, a headline, a paragraph, a couple buttons, a couple paragraphs right here, and I'm just going to hit the button, and it's a rock, paper, scissors game, so you choose. If you're a rock person, you choose rock, and then the computer will bring their choice up. So the computer choice will be random, your choice will be your choice. So if I choose rock, they chose paper, computer wins. And there's the reason, because paper covers rock. If I choose paper, I lost again because scissors cuts paper, and this is actually the game over because this one is set up, I think, to go 2 times. So if the computer wins twice, it's game over. Notice that the buttons are now disabled, and I have a reset button. So let me just reset it quick, and this time I'll choose scissors, and I lost again because computer chose rock, I chose scissors, and I lost. Let's see if I could win one of these. I'll choose rock, and I won that time, and it says you win. Rock crushes scissors, and that gives me the reasoning. So I won, so it's tied up right now. I'm going to go with paper, and it's a stalemate. So if they're the same, it's a stalemate. I'll go with paper again, and it's a stalemate again. I'll try paper one more time, and I lost, game over. So computer wins. So it actually tallies up points to decide who wins so that the game gets to an ending point. So I think if either the computer gets 2 points or you get 2 points, the game's over. So it does kind of like, I guess, a 2 out of 3 kind of thing. And then there's a reset, so you could reset it again. So that's what happens here. It's not that complicated as far as a layout, although keep in mind we do have, when we do our HTML, we're going to have like a container div, and then it's going to have 2 other divs inside it. So that part might be a little complicated as far as writing the HTML and just keeping track of the classes and the IDs, but we'll go over that. So that'll be the first part of this. And then the JavaScript will have some if-else statements. It'll have some random numbers because the random number will generate the computer choice, and you'll choose your own choice. And then we'll even have colors that get chosen here, and then we'll even tally up points. So there's a lot to do in this simple looking exercise, but we're going to get started with the HTML. So let's start a brand new HTML page. Okay, so I'm back to my kind of main CodePen screen, and I'm going to create a new pen. So I'll just go to create new pen, and this will be my area, and I'll give myself lots of room for the HTML because we're going to focus on the HTML first. I'll even keep my old one open here in case we need to look at the sample for whatever reason, but we'll start this from scratch. If you want to name it, I'll click on the pen, and I'll give it a name, and I'll just call it RPS, and I'm gonna just give it a V. You might give it your section name, you might give it your assignment name, whether in 103 or 235. Whatever it is, I'm gonna call it V for video. So whatever you need to name it that way. Either way, we'll be able to get to it in your pens anyway. So, but that's what I'm gonna call that since I'm recording a video, rock, paper, scissors, video. And I'm gonna need to do some HTML, and I'm gonna take a look at my instructions first. And here are the instructions. And we're going to create a new pen, and there it says created JS RPS. And we're going to start off with some code here, and you can see there's a screenshot. We're going to have body tags. That's all we're going to have. We're going to have nothing outside our body tags. We're going to have an H1, a paragraph with just some instructions in it, and then 3 buttons. So we're going to do that first before we worry about everything else. So let's go do that, and we're going to use Emmet to do that so we could do some shortcuts without having to type all that code. So we're going to have inside body, we're going to have an H1, we're going to have a paragraph, and we're going to have 3 buttons, and I'll show you how to do that. So we'll go back to here, and I'm just going to type body instead of typing my tags. I'll type body, and then inside body I'm going to have an H1, and my H1, if you want to put text that it's going to have inside it, you can put curly brackets, and I'm just going to put rock, paper, scissors, and that just means that text is going to be inside the H1. And then also, because these are no longer children, they're children of body, but they're at the same level of H1, then you could just use a plus sign. And then we're going to have a paragraph, so I'm just going to put a P, and I'm not going to give it any kind of name or anything, so I'm just going to keep moving on. You could put your text in here, but I'm not. And then I'm going to have 3 buttons. So I'm going to put plus, and then I'm going to put button, and they're going to have IDs. So we're going to name the buttons because we're going to need to communicate with them. So we're going to use the pound sign, which will indicate that it's going to have an ID name. And I'm just going to give it one name right now, and we'll change them. And I'll give it a name called rock-btn. That'll be my ID name to identify the buttons, rock-btn. And again, we're saying it's a button element with the ID name rock button. That's why we're using the pound sign. And then we're also going to do times 3. So we're going to use the multiplication symbol, the asterisk, times 3, so it does 3 of those. And what that should do is give me my body tags with my H1, my paragraph, and my buttons inside once I hit the tab key. Let's see how that works out, and that's exactly what I wanted. And this finally updated. Now what I want to do here is make this my paper button, and everything we'll do in order of rock, paper, scissors. And if you're not sure how to spell scissors, get used to doing it or find some kind of shortcut. So you don't spell it wrong or that becomes a problem. But I'm going to call that scissors-btn. I'm going to try to keep everything lowercase. What I'm doing right now, here I'll even save it. Now I don't have any text inside my button right now, so maybe I'll do that. So in between my button tags, I'm just going to put rock. So I have a rock button, and then paper, so I have a paper button, and then scissors, so I have a scissors button. We won't worry about the reset button yet. We will eventually put a reset button. But for now, I'm just going to have a rock, paper, scissors button. I won't even worry about resizing them yet because we'll deal with that a little bit later. Let's just get everything in here. Now in our paragraph, that should have a little instruction like, please choose a button for your choice. Whatever you want to put there. I forget what I put in there. So please choose a button for your choice. Whatever you want to put for some instruction there. Or please choose rock, paper, scissors. It's pretty obvious what to do there. So I'll just put 3 of those. So that's all we'll need for there. So very generic kind of stuff now. So that's the first part of our HTML, is just getting these buttons in. The next part's a little more complicated, so that's why I just wanted to do this first. What we're going to do next is kind of put in our kind of container. And just to go back and take a look at this, this is what it's going to look like, and we'll change the font and things like that. But the container, we're going to have a container, and it's going to be a div, and it's going to have a class name container, and it's going to be very generic. It's just going to basically have like an overflow auto, so it can fit 2 floated elements in it. So we're going to fit 2 floated elements in it, and those elements are going to be divs, and they're just going to be called image area. Image-area are going to be the name of the divs. They'll both have the same class name, and that's why we use classes when we use more than one. They're a little more generic. IDs are more specific. Classes are kind of more generic. So we're going to have 2 classes called image area, and they're just going to be floated, and they're going to be almost exactly the same. That way we could put the same kind of padding around them or whatever we need to do. Now inside each one of these image areas, we're also going to have another. We're going to have a paragraph, and then we're going to have another div with an ID, and that's where our picture is going to go. And that's going to be very specific, so we will have an ID for that so that we can kind of make it be the computer choice, and this one could be your choice, so 2 different pictures can display there. So that's what we're going to have to do next. So if we scroll down here, this kind of goes through of how to do this. I guess here, it kind of the notes kind of explain what's going to be here, just what I was doing. But this is what we're going to do with Emmet, and here's the code. You can even copy and paste this code. Maybe I'll just do that just to save time. I'll copy and paste this code here, and then just kind of go through it rather than retyping it. But this is all going to go inside a body, so I'm going to go right here and hit return. And I'll put this code here, and I just want to explain what's going on. There's a div with a class name container. And then inside that, that's why we have this kind of symbol here, we're going to have a div, and it's going to have an image area. It's going to be a div with a class called image area. And then inside that is going to be a paragraph with a class called image label. And then on the same level as that, because here's our first one, inside of that is this, and then inside of that are these 2 things. So we're only focusing on these 3 things. This with the image area inside of that, and then these 2 things inside of that. So that's what we're setting up here. That's why we have the div container. Inside of that is the image area, then inside of that is the paragraph, and at the same level is another div called cchoice, which is actually a div that's going to have an ID name for the computer choice. So we're only focusing on the one on the left side right now, and then we're just going to copy that. So I'm just going to hit the tab key, and again, you could type this, or now I could hit the tab key, and I'll do that, and you can see what the reason, kind of doing that and thinking about it is because you have a lot of little kind of parent-child relationships. If I click on here, I'll see there's the opening container div. Now I can't see anything right now, and that's why sometimes we'll give them a background color just to see what they look like. We'll give container a background color, and then there's an image area inside there, and then there's a paragraph with an image label, and right away I'll just type computer choice. That way it'll have some content in there that you may see there right now, but it won't really look like it's anywhere. Let me save it. It's telling me to save. And then there's a div ID with a choice, and I'll just put like IMG here for now, because this will get replaced. But I'll just put it almost like a placeholder right now, just for that, and that'll get replaced by an image. So an image is going to have to go in there, an image source, and we're going to put that in the same way we did our random image exercise. We're going to put that in there and have it get written with the JavaScript. So we're going to leave that kind of empty right now. So that's all we have right now. And I think what I'll do is I'll put a background color for container. Now I could just go over here and just do .container, because there's only one. So I don't have to put div.container or anything. I could just put container, and I could give it a special kind of background color if I want. I'll just do background color, and I'll choose background color. And I'll put a colon, and then if I want to choose one from assets, I could just go here and choose just a really light color for now. And it gets copied to the clipboard. Then I could go here and I could paste it. And I'll put a semicolon, and I'll close this up. And you can see the background color of that container. Remember, that's a div with a class name of container. And I'm also, this is very important, I'm going to do something here called overflow. And it's very important, although you might not know what it does, but what overflow will do in CSS, it'll kind of keep floats in here without having to do any clears or anything like that. So we're just going to put auto here right now. And when we float our two images in here side by side, it should contain them and not kind of break the float. So we should be okay with that. So that's all we're doing with that. We don't have to keep this color here. It's just here now as a placeholder, just so we know that things are inside things correctly. So let me move on now and let me check out image area. So we have this. So what we want to do here, and it's very important to kind of keep track of your HTML here, to know that everything we do here is going to be inside of container. So it has to be inside of this blue thing, just like here. So now what we have to do is we're going to copy the first one. We only did one. We're going to copy the second one and make sure it's inside a container, and it'll be exactly the same, except we'll just have a different ID for your choice. There's a different picture going to be showing up there, so that'll be a little bit different. Everything else will be exactly the same. So I'll go back here, and what I'll do is I'm going to copy this, because there'll be a second image area, and the image areas will be exactly the same, so we don't have to give them a different class. They'll both have a class called image area. So let me just copy this, and it's very important that I'm copying only the stuff within the container. So I'm not copying, I'm making sure that I leave my open and closing container tags there. I'll copy this, and I'll hit return, and let me undo that, make sure that you deselect before you hit return. And then I'll do that again, and now, obviously it gets a little more confusing, but you want to double check that there's my opening and closing container. There's my opening and closing image area, my first one, and here's my opening and closing image area, my second one, and here's your computer choice. This one is going to be called your choice, and image could just stay there. Now this ID is also going to be called your choice, and maybe you could just put a Y there. Since we're doing C choice there, we'll call this Y choice. That makes more sense. It's more consistent. Anything you could do to make this consistent, because the names could really mess you up later if you're not consistent with your names. So right now these things are stacked, and they're going to be floated next to each other. So we're going to fix that. But notice they're still in the container. So you want to make sure this is the most important part, that you keep everything in your HTML first. Once you do that, the JavaScript won't be too bad. Some of it will be out of exercises we've already done. And again, we could style computer choice, with fonts and things like that to make it look nice. And instead of everything in default Times New Roman like it is now, we'll change all that. But we want to get our structure for our HTML set up first. So that's why we're doing that first, making sure everything's right. And also our structure is going to be our CSS, making sure the two image areas float side by side. So this class, this div with a class of image area, is going to float next to the other one, and we're just going to make one style for image area because they're going to be exactly alike. So let's go back to CSS, and I'll make a class called image area. I won't make a class, it's there, but I'm going to target a class called image area, make a selector for it, and it has to be written exactly like it is here. So however you did it here, if that's called class equals image area, it has to be exactly the same with the dash. And I'll put my opening and closing curly brackets. And all that I'm going to do here is just put float, and I'm going to do float left. So they kind of float left of each other. And you can see they're right up against each other, so we're probably going to give them some space. So what we'll do is we'll do something called a margin right. And that'll they'll both have margin to the right of them. Now you won't notice it on this one because there's going to be nothing over there, but I'll put a margin right, and I'll put maybe 40 pixels for now, just see how that looks. And that looks fine for now. Now we don't have our image in here. It'll expand to fit our image. We're going to put an image in here next, but we wanted to get that set up first. Again, we won't worry about any other CSS for the moment. We want to get our pictures in here first and make sure that things are working. So that's going to be moving on to our JavaScript. So after kind of doing our overview and kind of getting this set up, I think I'll stop here as part 1, and then part 2 will be setting up our JavaScript so we could start showing our images and our images show up, and then we'll kind of go from there. So that's the end of part 1 for now.